according to this real estate agent in Savannah, Georgia, she may have accidentally shown a house to the people who lived there over 100 years ago. Now, before I tell this story and we go any further, there is no way for me to verify any of this, so take it as purely entertainment and you decide for yourself. This story was sent to me by somebody who heard it through the grapevine on another form of social media. I do not know who the original poster is, so if you do, please tell me in the comments so I can give them the credit that is due. Now, on to the good stuff. So, according to the story, a real estate agent arrived one morning to prepare an old home for a showing in Savannah, Georgia. The house was absolutely beautiful, right? Like one of those Southern Gothic Victorian beautiful homes, the kind of place that looked like it belonged in another century. And according to the property records, the home had sat empty for nearly 25-30 years. There were no permanent occupants, no renovations. It was owned by the city apparently, and there was nothing. Couldn't even find anything on the previous owners. It was just quietly aging in the Georgia heat. Now, when the realtor pulled into the driveway, she immediately noticed something kind of strange. There were already 2 vehicles parked there, which made no sense because as far as records went, she was the only one who was scheduled to be at that property that day. Assuming that another agent had arrived early and was also doing a showing, she grabbed her keys and walked toward the back entrance, and that's when she saw them. There were 3 people, a man, a woman, and another man who she assumed to be the realtor, only because of how he was presenting himself. But the 3 of them looked oddly related. Not siblings, not like parent-child related. They just looked very similar. And according to her, all 3 of them were incredibly unsettling. Not because they were rude or they looked scary, but she said they just looked off. They were very attractive, almost like unnaturally attractive, she said, but their skin was extremely pale, like they hadn't seen sunlight in years, like transparent white. And all 3 looked strangely young, but also old at the same time, she said. Their faces were so smooth, like no pores, but just like something about their eyes looked very old and ancient. So she also noticed they appeared to be wearing an unusual amount of powder or like makeup. And even the man that she assumed was the realtor, even him and the woman's face looked almost porcelain, she said. And now, according to her, they moved like very strange. They, not stiff, not robotic, but they moved very gracefully, almost like they were gliding instead of walking. And the man had smiled at her and asked, oh, are you here to purchase the property? Are you interested? And the realtor, she laughed and explained that she actually worked for the listing company and had a potential buyer that was arriving, within the hour. And according to her, the second that she said that, all 3 of them looked at each other and exchanged a concerned look. And then they looked back at her and they just nodded silently, and a few moments later they began walking through the house with her, doing their own thing, going off into their own rooms. And that's when things kind of got a little stranger. The woman casually mentioned that they used to own the home, and then the older man quickly corrected her and he goes, well, it has belonged to our family since the Civil War, not us. And according to the realtor, the wording kind of like it really stuck with her as odd, because not had belonged, it has belonged, like present tense. And the woman then began pointing out various items throughout the house, like old furniture and decorations and antiques, and eventually several antique throw rugs that were scattered throughout the home. This woman seemed very fond of those. And she smiled and she said, it would mean a great deal to us if we could purchase the property again. And then she added something that kind of sent a chill down this realtor's spine. Even those rugs are ours, is what she said. And a few minutes later, the 3 visitors abruptly thanked her and they just left. No business cards, no contact information, nothing, just up and gone. And according to the realtor, the entire house immediately felt different after they left. Like the air had become lighter, warmer, and normal again. Like she said, she felt like she could take a breath finally. And as she prepared for the upcoming showing, she began straightening things up, and that's when she noticed one of the corners of an antique throw rug was folded upward. And not wanting someone to trip, just like any one of us would do, she bent down and she went to go flatten it out, and that's when she saw the stain that was underneath it. It was a dark reddish brown stain, and it looked very old, deeply soaked into the wood that was beneath it. And at first she assumed it was maybe water damage, but then she checked another rug and the same thing, then another and another. And she said that almost every antique rug in the house appeared to be covering very similar stains that were scattered throughout the home randomly, almost as if someone had intentionally placed them there to hide what was underneath, which is these reddish stains. And I'll leave you to think about what they are, up to your own imagination. Now, thoroughly unsettled, she continued searching the property, and inside the master bedroom closet, tucked away behind a loose piece of plywood that was leaned up against the wall, was a large framed family portrait, and it was covered in dust and very much aged, and the photograph appeared to date back to the early 1900s. And according to her, the people in the picture looked exactly like the three people that were just at the house: the man, the woman, and the realtor. And the same man, the same woman, and that same younger guy, same faces, same eyes, only dressed in clothing from another century. And she said, yeah, it could have been somebody else, but she said that they really looked alike. And the realtor reportedly stood there just staring at this portrait for several minutes, trying to convince herself that maybe it was a coincidence, right? Until she noticed something written on the back of the frame, and it was a date. And she immediately called the listing company, and according to the story, when they checked the records later on that week, nobody matching the description of those three people had ever contacted the agency or any agency about the property. No appointments, no inquiries, no calls, nothing. She even did the MLS listing records to see, maybe if she can find something, and nothing. So you tell me what you think. Did she meet descendants of the original owners, or did she accidentally show the house to something that never truly left it behind? Maybe they were just coming back. Let me know what you think.